We are the Ultramarines, the sons of Guilliman. Whilst we draw breath, we stand. Whilst we stand, we fight. Whilst we fight, we prevail. Nothing shall stay our wrath. Marneus Calgar, Chapter Master of the Ultramarines. Marneus Augustus Calgar is the esteemed Chapter Master of the Ultramarines, serving as both the Lord Defender of Greater Ultramar and the Sovereign Lord of Macragge, the capital of Ultramar in the galaxy's eastern fringe. Calgar is widely regarded as the first recorded firstborn space marine to undergo the powerful transformation into a Primaris space marine. To understand the storied life of Marneus Calgar, one must delve into the hallowed depths of the fortress of Hera on Macragge, the Ultramarines' fortress monastery. Within this sanctum, a revered vault holds the chronicles of the chapter's greatest champions, and for Calgar alone, 28 volumes document his countless deeds, a tally exceeded only by the legendary Guilliman himself. Since ascending to Chapter Master, Calgar has showcased his unmatched skill in warfare across an uncountable number of campaigns. Unlike commanders who throw lives away, Calgar understands that true victory lies with the soldiers who carry it to fruition. His warriors are bound to him not just by duty, but by unwavering loyalty, inspired by his presence on and off the battlefield. Despite his reputation as a strategist, Calgar is also renowned for his personal courage. It was he who spearheaded the daring assault on the hive ship designated Behemoth Primus, one of the earliest Tyrannid attacks, and he alone held the gate against the Orc horde for an entire solar night and day at the siege of Zalathras. Calgar leads from the front, often placing himself at the head of his Ultramarines as they pierce the heart of enemy lines. His strategies culminate with him in the thick of battle, dispatching foes with ruthless precision and rallying his warriors to final victory. Even with the recent return of Guilliman, Calgar remains a figure of reverence throughout Ultramar, embodying the resilience and indomitable spirit of humanity. In Marneus Calgar, they see a leader who would fight until the stars themselves grow cold, not only in service to the Lord Commander and the undying Emperor, but for the enduring future of humanity. We follow in the footsteps of Guilliman, as it is written in the Codex, so shall it be. Marneus Calgar, Chapter Master of the Ultramarines, Chapter. As a true embodiment of Ultramarine nobility, Marneus Calgar is utterly unshaken by fear, and his courage remains unwavering under intense fire. Where ordinary soldiers might instinctively seek cover, Calgar calmly assesses the battlefield, devises a strategy, and only seeks shelter when there is no other tactical choice. His storied achievements are meticulously chronicled in 28 volumes housed in a secure vault within the fortress of Hera, the Ultramarines' legendary stronghold on Macragge. Leading the initial breach against the Tyrannid hive ship, Behemoth Primus, defending Zalathrax's gate solo against an Orc horde through an entire night and day, and defeating an avatar of Cain in single combat, ultimately routing the Elder at Aurar's sepulchre in the year 888 of the 41st millennium. He also reclaimed the Star Fort Indomitable from the demonic forces of Macragge the Reborn, with aid from the Inquisition, casting the demon back into the warp, or so it seemed. In reality, Macragge was only sealed within the fort's core and would eventually return to present Calgar with his most formidable challenge. In the year 754 of the 41st millennium, Hive Fleet Behemoth's invasion of the Eastern Fringe brought the most severe threat to Ultramar since the Horus Heresy. The Ultramarines' homeworld of Macragge would become the critical battleground for the entire sector. Upon learning of the encroaching Hive Fleet, Calgar, then Lord of the Ultramarines, ordered all defences on Macragge to maximum alert. Warships and massive orbital stations readied for the impending conflict, and every soldier prepared to face the oncoming Tyrannid horde. Within weeks, the Tyrannid vanguard fleet descended upon Macragge, overwhelming the blockade with hundreds of bioships and unleashing countless alien monstrosities onto the planet's surface. Recognizing the enormity of the threat, Calgar merged his ground forces into 3 primary armies. The first 2 were stationed at Macragge's polar fortresses, while Calgar himself led the third, launching a series of fierce rearguard actions to impede the Tyranids' relentless advance. Marneus Calgar drew upon every strategy and resource, using Macragge's rugged terrain as a tactical weapon against the swarm. He lured the Tyranids into narrow valleys and onto fragile ice bridges where their overwhelming numbers counted for little. Ultramarine gun lines held firm against the onslaught, while artillery and flanking fire mowed down waves of the enemy. Tactical squads carried out audacious strikes to divert the swarm, enabling assault marines to target key hive control organisms. Armoured transports manoeuvred squads to outflank the advancing horde, while bike squadrons and scouts executed staged retreats, drawing the largest Tyranids into the kill zone of awaiting tanks. However, at Cold Steel Ridge the tide turned against the Ultramarines. The Tyranid forces, relentless and unyielding, were led by a fearsome new foe, an alien intelligence whose strategic cunning rivaled the Ultramarines' own, the Swarm Lord. This hive tyrant's instinctual grasp of warfare countered Calgar's every move, and soon the Tyranid forces, guided by the Swarm Lord's psychic control, began overwhelming the Ultramarines' defences. Realising that remaining groundside would mean certain annihilation for his warriors, Calgar ordered a withdrawal to the orbiting battle barge Octavius via Thunderhawk gunships. But the Swarm Lord sensed its quarry slipping away and, flanked by an elite swarm of hive warriors, carved a path straight toward Calgar himself. Despite his wounds, Calgar stood firm, each swing of his fists decimating the Xenos creatures around him. Yet the relentless Tyranid onslaught wore him down, and his body suffered grievous wounds. When he finally faced the Swarm Lord, he was on the brink of collapse, yet he refused to yield. They clashed in a battle worthy of legend, each strike echoing with the weight of their might. Though Calgar fought with every last reserve of strength, the Swarm Lord's vicious bone sabers ultimately overcame him. In a final act of loyalty, Calgar's honor guard threw themselves between their commander and the monster, creating a living shield. They fought fiercely, their bolters thundering and their blades flashing, slowly pushing the Swarm Lord back. Their self-sacrifice held the line until the Thunderhawks arrived. As the remaining honor guard bore their chapter master to safety, Brother Aloysius made the ultimate sacrifice, succumbing to the Swarm Lord's deadly blows as Calgar's gunship ascended. Through the bravery of Aloysius and his brothers, Marneus Calgar survived to continue the fight, but Cold Steel Ridge was lost that day. Remember the names of the honored fallen, recall their deeds, and know that their sacrifice honors the chapter. No son of Guilliman could wish for a more glorious death. Orton Cassius, Ultramarines' Master of Sanctity. Hours after Calgar's withdrawal, the main swarm of the Tyranids descended upon Macragge in full force. Ignoring all but essential medical treatment, Calgar resumed command of his fleet, immediately launching a fierce counterattack. With Macragge's polar fortresses hammering the Tyranids from below and Calgar's fleet delivering devastating strikes from above, countless Tyranid vessels were obliterated. Yet many remained, determined to rain destruction. In desperation, the Tyranid forces deployed thousands of mycetic spores over the planet's polar strongholds before retreating. Confident that his Ultramarines could hold the fortresses, Calgar relentlessly pursued the hive fleet, determined to prevent it from reaching another Imperial world. Meanwhile, on the icy battlegrounds of Macragge, the Ultramarines' courage was pushed to its limits. Veterans of the First Company led bold counterattacks, pushing back the Tyranid hordes time and again before regrouping at the defensive walls. Titans from Legio Preta roamed the ice fields, their cataclysmic weapons scorching trenches through the advancing Xenos swarms. Yet, the Tyranid assault was ceaseless. At the northern fortress, the aliens overwhelmed the walls, using mounds of their own dead as cover to close in on the defenders. Even the towering war machines of the Imperium were eventually overcome by the sheer volume of foes. Supplies dwindled, and despite provisions prepared for prolonged siege, the Ultramarines found themselves stretched thin. Still, they fought with an unwavering resolve, unbroken by thoughts of retreat or surrender. In orbit, Calgar pursued the Tyranid fleet towards the world of Circe, where Battlefleet Baka, arriving from the naval fortress of Baka, joined the fight. trapping the Xenos bioships between two powerful Imperial forces. Despite substantial losses among the Imperial fleet, the combined might of Calgar's fleet and Battlefleet Backer destroyed the Tyrannid vessels, culminating in the Emperor-class battleship Dominus Astra sacrificing itself by detonating its warp drive. This unleashed a rift into the Immaterium, drawing the Hive fleet to a fateful end. With the Tyrannid fleet vanquished, Calgar's fleet raced back toward Macragge. Upon their return, the Ultramarines' Third Company, led by Captain Fabian and Chaplain Cassius, became the first to deploy, descending by drop pod into the corpse-littered wastelands near the northern polar fortress. The sights awaiting them were scenes of grim devastation. Death hung heavily in the air, and the ground was cratered by explosions and stained with alien gore. The Third Company came under immediate assault as hundreds of Tyrannid creatures emerged from tunnels to attack the Astartes. Only the disciplined fire from the Devastator squads held back the swarm long enough for reinforcements in the form of Astartes gunships to push the Xenos back into the depths. With the arrival of 3 mighty dreadnoughts, the Third Company advanced into the fortress itself, steadfastly searching through the ruin and carnage for any survivors of the fierce defense. Through dim corridors and gore-slicked passageways still crawling with alien threats, the Third Company pushed forward, eventually reaching the fortress's lower generatorium, where the last defenders had made their final stand. Tyrannid corpses were heaped high, and a circle of fallen Terminators marked where they had fought to the bitter end, standing back to back. Though they had cut down wave after wave of Tyrannids and held the fortress against impossible odds, every warrior of the Ultramarines' First Company had fallen in battle. The Battle of Macragge remains a defining chapter of both sorrow and honor for the Ultramarines. Though Hive Fleet Behemoth was vanquished, the victory came at a tremendous cost. Statues were erected to immortalize the valor and sacrifice of the lost brothers, and their names are recited annually during the Feast of Days. Yet the loss remains a deeply felt blow to the strength of the chapter, and it took years for the Ultramarines to replenish their ranks fully. However, as always, the sons of Guilliman endured. In the years following the Battle of Macragge, Marneus Calgar and his Ultramarines have played a key role in the Imperium's ongoing wars against other Tyrannid Hive fleets. Responding to the threat, and in a rare departure from the strict dictates of the Codex Astartes, Calgar forged a new elite force from the battle-hardened survivors of Macragge. These warriors, known as the Tyrannic War Veterans, now form the reconstituted First Company, armed with enhanced training, experience, and upgraded power armor, making them unmatched among the Imperium's forces. In the year 762 of the 41st millennium, Calgar led his chapter's remnants against the demon-tainted Forge World of Thrax. Under his leadership, the Ultramarines purged thousands of demons and secured critical data records from the corrupted Manufactoria. With their mission complete, Calgar ordered exterminatus, ensuring that no trace of chaos would remain. One of his most famous exploits occurred in the year 797 of the 41st millennium, during the defense of the Hive city of Zalathras, where Marneus Calgar single-handedly held the city gates against an entire orc horde, enduring through a night and day of relentless assault. "We shall not capitulate to the demands of these grasping Xenos brothers. This ground holds one of our own, a hero whose bravery we shall not betray with defeat. We will defend his honor. We will defend our chapter's honor to the last drop of our blood." From Marneus Calgar's address at the Battle of the Sepulchre. In the year 888 of the 41st millennium, an emissary from the Bieltan craft world arrived on the imperial world of Comrath to negotiate with its planetary governor for the return of a relic from the tomb of one of the Ultramarines' legendary figures, Captain Orar. The artifact, known as the Scepter of Galaxian, held great importance for the Eldar. When the governor refused to relinquish it, the Eldar diplomat's tone turned from polite to hostile, his entreaties giving way to threats. Unmoved by the Eldar's intimidation, the governor ordered his immediate execution. However, mindful of the Eldar's warning, the governor called for assistance from the Ultramarines. In response, Craftworld forces from both Alatok and Iyanden launched an assault on Comrath to retrieve the relic from Aurar's sepulchre. Aurar was a hero of great renown, and Chapter Master Marneus Calgar vowed to prevent any alien from desecrating his tomb. For the first time since the Battle of Macragge, Calgar led his entire chapter into war. When the Eldar advanced on Aurar's sepulchre, they found it heavily defended by the Ultramarines. Aspect warriors and guardians surged towards the tomb's gates while Eldar grav tanks and artillery pounded the Imperial forces. On Calgar's command, the Ultramarines broke cover, unleashing precise bolter fire that drove the attackers back from the sepulchre's steps. As the Eldar retreated, they encountered assault marines and land speeders cutting off their escape routes. Eldar leaders attempted to rally their troops only to be picked off by the scouts hidden among the ruins. Though the initial attack faltered, the Eldar persisted, mounting assault after assault throughout the night. Despite their mastery of ancient sciences and advanced tactics, they were outmatched by Calgar's strategic brilliance. The next morning, the Eldar launched a renewed assault, led by a towering figure wreathed in flames, the avatar of Kayla Mencha, their god of war. Heavy weapons fire barely seemed to slow it, and the Ultramarine line buckled under its relentless charge. With no other option, Calgar personally challenged the fiery war god. The avatar's first strike missed by a hair, while the second tore chunks from Calgar's armor. The third blow drove him to one knee, and the fourth met the unyielding grip of Calgar's armored left hand. Summoning all his strength, Calgar struck back, delivering a mighty blow that punched through the molten core of the avatar's torso. With the fall of their god, the Eldar's morale shattered. Some fled in disarray, while others retreated in orderly ranks, but all left the field under the cover of darkness. Though victorious, Calgar knew the Eldar would inevitably return for the scepter of Galaxian. He advised the governor of Comrath that the artifact would be removed from Aurar's sepulchre and taken to Macragge, where it could be guarded with the respect and security it deserved. In the year 921 of the 41st millennium, Marneus Calgar found himself ambushed by a Night Lord's Traitor Legion warband while on his way to the battlefront at Darkhold. His vessel, heavily damaged, made an emergency landing on the sparsely populated feudal imperial world of Barathrid. Not long after, several hundred Night Lords' Chaos Space Marines also descended upon the planet. Despite the overwhelming odds, Calgar rallied Barathred's feudal warriors, leading them to a courageous victory over the invaders. Macragge, the infamous demon prince known as the Thrice-Born, had once served as a chaplain and later as a dark apostle named Malok Cartho in the Word-Bearer's Traitor Legion during the Horus heresy. After achieving demonhood, Macragge periodically manifested in the Materium, and in the year 878 of the 41st millennium, as Macragge the Reborn, he launched another assault on Ultramar, leading a Chaos pirate fleet. However, the Ultramarines' second company, under Captain Cato Sicarius, intercepted him in the Hellamar Rift, destroying most of his pirate vessels. Although Sicarius severely weakened Macragge's forces, the Demon Prince escaped into the warp. In the year 935 of the 41st millennium, Macragge emerged again, this time leading a Chaos warband to capture the Star Fort Indomitable in Ultramar's territory. Marneus Calgar led the Ultramarines in boarding the Star Fort, where he met Macragge in single combat. Though Calgar bested him, Macragge's seething hatred for the Imperium and Ultramar was so fierce that the Inquisition could not banish him. Instead, they bound him to the warp core of the Indomitable, tethering him in a way that made every escape attempt only reinforce his imprisonment. The Ultramarines, wary of the risks, deployed half of their 5th Company aboard the Star Fort, which was then sent into Ultramar's uncharted regions. Officially, the Ultramarines maintained that Calgar had ripped Macragge limb from limb, sending him back into the warp for good. In the year 993 of the 41st millennium, after quashing a rebellion on the industrial world of Ichar IV, the Ultramarines found themselves standing against High Fleet Kraken in a desperate bid to protect the Imperium. With Chaplain Cassius and seasoned veterans from the First Tyrannic War by his side, Calgar led a daring assault that severed the Tyrannid's synaptic network, a victory marked by Cassius's fearless rallying of his battle brothers. Calgar once again facing the resurrected Swarmlord that nearly claimed his life on Macragge. This time, fought the Xenos beast to the death and overcame it with his own hands. Deprived of its greatest tactical asset, the Tyrannid forces faltered, allowing the Ultramarines to dismantle the swarms with precision. However, the victory came too late to save Icar 4, which was left ravaged and barren, a ghastly remnant of the Tyrannid invasion. In a troubling twist, the hive mind absorbed the Swarmlord's memories from this defeat, making its next incarnation even more cunning, posing a renewed and evolving threat to the Imperium's defences. Calgar's inability to permanently banish Macragge nearly spelled catastrophe for Ultramar. The Demon Prince was later released by Iron Warrior's warsmith Honso in the year 997 of the 41st millennium, joining forces with him in a campaign to lay waste to the Ultramarines and their domains. Ultimately, Calgar faced Macragge on Talassar, one of Ultramar's worlds, and finally destroyed the Demon Prince with a strange ancient blade from the Battle of Calth, known as the Shard of Erebus. Afterward, Calgar emerged a humbler leader, deeply affected by the experience. Despite their initial disappointment with his previous claims about Macragge, the Ultramarines' officers and ruling masters continued to hold unwavering respect and admiration for their chapter master. In the year 999 of the 41st millennium, not long after Macragge's bloodborne invasion, Ultramar faced yet another crisis. A portion of Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade reached Ultramar, seeking to exploit a unique event rumoured to be unfolding on Macragge, one that could shift the long war against the Imperium in favour of chaos. This event referred to the arrival of the Celestine Crusade, survivors of Cadia's fall, who had journeyed through the webway, aided by the Eldar Inari. Upon arrival, these unlikely allies were escorted to Macragge, the strategic heart of the new Ultramar campaign. Here, Archmagos Belisarius' call revealed to Calgar's war council his need for access to the Temple of Correction within the fortress of Hera. Here, the Ultramarines' Primarch, Guilliman, lay in stasis. The Archmagos insisted that he possessed an artifact capable of resurrecting the mortally wounded Primarch. The proposal ignited fierce debate. First Captain Severus Agemon opposed the stranger's plan, distrusting both the newcomers and their mysterious device. In his view, the prudent action was to secure the pilgrims in confinement, locking their artifact in a stasis vault until it could be carefully analyzed. As for the Xenos among them, Agemon urged their swift elimination to protect the chapter master and the fortress of Hera from any potential threat. St. Celestine spoke next, attempting to convey the divine mandate behind her mission and the visions granted by the Emperor. Her words, however, were met with the aimed bolters of the Honor Guard and the raised condemner bolter of Inquisitor Katarina Greyfax, whose Puritan instincts had only intensified. It was clear that the next decision lay with the rulers of Ultramar, not their visitors. All present turned to Marneus Calgar, who, in turn, sought the wisdom of his chief librarian, Varro Tigurius. Meanwhile, though nearly undetectable, both Ivrain and the Vicearch of the Inari subtly braced for action, every slight movement and shift preparing them to fight their way out should tensions reach a boiling point. The librarian held his silence, his face lined with deep thought. After a few moments, Tigurius finally spoke, his voice a profound echo of experience and authority. He reminded Calgar of the disturbing visions he had experienced just days before Macragge came under siege. In his foresight, Tigurius had glimpsed flocks of iron birds rising from a distant crimson world thick with grinding gears. These birds soared through flames and shadows, spilling from the gate of an immense castle. Each had grasped a blazing sword in its talons, wings aglow with holy light as they moved toward Ultramar. Beyond the breached gate, an ominous eye with a slit pupil watched, and as the birds drew near Macragge, a monstrous maw filled with blood-stained fangs loomed, poised to snap shut. Initially, Tigurius believed these visions related to the fall of Cadia and the Black Legion's invasion of Ultramar, prompting him to fortify Macragge's defences and send urgent astropathic messages that gathered the Ultramar defense fleet in time for the battle. But now, Tigurius confessed he saw these visions also reflected in the visitors before them. With conviction he declared his trust in the travellers, even the enigmatic Eldar, and insisted that their arrival embodied the Emperor's divine purpose. A murmur rippled through the strategium at his words, and Calgar gave a grave nod. Without further comment, he invited the Celestinians to explain their presence. Inquisitor Greyfax, Marshal Marius Amalric of the Black Templars, and St. Celestine recounted the grim tale of Cadia's fall and their harrowing escape. Even Ivrain of the Inari spoke briefly, shedding light on the alien presence among them. The one figure who remained cryptic was Archmagos Call. Despite Calgar's persistent questions, the Archmagos guarded the secret of what his auto-reliquary contained and what he intended to do within the shrine. As the pilgrims spoke, the battle for Ultramar continued to rage. Constant reports fed into the chamber, shifting troop deployments, advancing and countering formations, enemy landing zones, ammo stocks, and a litany of other critical details. Calgar absorbed each new piece of information, issuing crisp orders as needed while maintaining his focus on the holomap above. He was intent on understanding the mysterious visitors and their mission, but he would not waver in the defense of his fortress. When Greyfax finished, she solemnly added that she spoke with the Emperor's authority in this matter and would bear full responsibility if Call proved to be a traitor, even personally executing him. Calgar raised his hand to prevent further discussion, silencing both the travellers and the disgruntled Captain Guilliman. Then, in a voice laden with gravity, Calgar delivered his judgment. The chapter-master ultimately allowed the Celestinians to carry their mysterious auto-reliquary into Guilliman's shrine, albeit under tight Ultramarines' watch. Acknowledging Guilliman's careful advice, Calgar noted that they faced unprecedented circumstances. Chaos itself had returned to haunt Macragge, and the warp was a seething cauldron of madness. The enemy was clearly benefiting from powers beyond mortal comprehension, and Calgar resolved to heed the visions of his chief librarian and the insights of the living saint, though his trust in Archmagos Call remained tentative at best. Guilliman, ever the stalwart ultramarine, took his commander's judgment with quiet resolve. As Call began to speak, Calgar cut him short, affirming that the Inari would also accompany their allies. Calgar believed that their presence bore the unmistakable touch of the Emperor's will. It was not his place to defy it. Events soon justified Calgar's decision, as Chaos launched a frenzied counterattack upon the temple to halt Guilliman's resurrection. With Call's arcane machinery and the immense psychic force of Aeneid, the Eldar god of the dead, channeled through Ivrain, Guilliman was miraculously restored to life, re-emerging as the Lord of Ultramar. During the Temple of Correction's chaotic defense against the Black Legion's final assault, Calgar witnessed a scene that would haunt him for eternity. In the midst of battle, as Call prepared to place the fabled armor of fate on Guilliman, the tech priest approached to deactivate the stasis field, preserving the mortally wounded Primarch. Convinced this was a betrayal, Calgar looked desperately to his chief librarian for intervention. Calgar's eyes followed Call as the tech priest moved back from his machine, which slowly unfolded with eerie purpose. Rising like a monstrous, predatory bloom, the auto-reliquary exposed a disturbing array of humming tools, writhing mechadendrites, snapping clamps, and gleaming bone saws. Though obscured from full view, Calgar sensed the device beginning to envelop Guilliman's seated form in a cold embrace. Just then, Ivrain sprang forward with supernatural grace, her blade raised high as she darted past whizzing bolt shells. Calgar roared, "No, I command you to stop! Tigurius, halt them in the Emperor's name!" But to his horror, Tigurius turned, meeting his gaze, and gave a slow, solemn shake of the head. "Do it!" bellowed the chief librarian, his psychic energy blazing against the tide of enemies. "And Emperor, forgive me if I've been misled by you, Xenos!" With a final surge of desperation, Calgar lifted his bolters, aiming to strike down Ivrain before she could act. But she moved with blinding speed, her blade slicing through the cables that powered Guilliman's stasis field. A burst of energy erupted, and from the closing arms of the auto-reliquary, Calgar heard a long, rattling sigh that would echo in his memory forever. "What have you done?" he roared, his voice raw with grief and fury. With fists clenched and unyielding resolve, Calgar turned his wrath upon the enemy forces that had led to this grim moment, charging back into the fray with an unstoppable rage. Calgar's fears proved to be unfounded. Engulfed by the relentless horde of Chaos Terminators that flooded the shrine of the Primarch, Calgar roared defiantly as he was overwhelmed, beaten down under a swarm of strikes and crushing blows. He did not witness the awakening of Guilliman, nor the Primarch's furious sweep through the Temple of Correction that drove the forces of Chaos back. As the enemy was forced into retreat, Calgar's battered form was revealed, his armour cracked and his face bloodied. Guilliman paused mid-stride, gazing down at his fallen son with a look that conveyed both a fierce protectiveness and a deep contemplation. Just then, Calgar stirred, one eye opening to glimpse his reborn gene-sire. A flicker of satisfaction crossed Guilliman's features as he continued on, leaving Calgar to stare in awe and disbelief at the miraculous sight before him. After the battle, once Calgar's formidable Astartes resilience had allowed him to recover, he returned to the strategium of the fortress of Hera alongside his Primarch. There, amidst the electrifying atmosphere, Guilliman formally assumed command of Ultramar's defence from First Captain Ageman. Calgar, though severely wounded, stood at Guilliman's side, propped up by two honour guards yet resolute in his need to be present. With a humility that belied his station, Guilliman requested permission from Calgar to take the mantle of command over the Ultramarines. Calgar, grimacing through his pain, shook off the support of his brothers, knelt before his gene-sire, and pledged unwavering loyalty, ceding control of the chapter to Guilliman in perpetuity. Taking his place at the strategium table like a maestro before his orchestra, Guilliman surveyed the battlefield with his hands spread across the table, issuing commands with calm precision. As the defender's situation transformed under his direction, his unparalleled strategic insight and tactical genius unfolded. The assembled Ultramarines looked on in awe as Guilliman wove intricate strategies, channeling streams of intelligence into swift orders that turned battles in favour of the defenders with flawless timing. Although Calgar and his lieutenants had fought valiantly against Chaos, Guilliman's mind operated on an entirely different level. Under Guilliman's orchestration, devastating crossfire and synchronized interceptor strikes cleared the airspace over the fortress of Hera. With the skies secured, reserves and Ultramar defense auxilia surged into position, executing seamless patterns of ambushes, diversions, and retaliations that shredded the Chaos attackers and expelled them from the fortress. Guilliman commanded hundreds of thousands as if reading his enemy's thoughts, preemptively countering each move. When Guilliman finally led his forces into the heart of the Chaos lines, it was a death blow to their morale. Black Legionnaires, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion and Night Lords alike fell back in disarray, crushed by the sheer precision of the Ultramarine counterattack. Traitor Titans toppled like smouldering giants, crashing to the ground in ruin. Just 3 solar hours after his return, Guilliman had completely purged the Chaos forces from the fortress of Hera, declaring the stronghold of the Ultramarines secured once more. With the immediate threat vanquished, there came a moment to catch breath and assess the damage. Servitors and serf work gangs toiled to restore the battered fortress, while Guilliman called an assembly in the chapter master's sanctum, a place long held as Marneus Calgar's seat of command, now rededicated to the Primarch himself. In this hallowed space, Guilliman was formally invested as the Lord of Ultramar and Master of the Ultramarines. Present for this pivotal ceremony were Calgar, Tigurius, Ageman, and their trusted lieutenants, alongside representatives from each company. The Celestinians attended to honour Guilliman's ascent, with Saint Celestine herself conferring her blessings. The Inari lingered in the shadows, their enigmatic faces silently bearing witness to the historic event, steadfast and inscrutable. As the formal proceedings drew to a close, Guilliman stood before those gathered, his voice steady yet charged with purpose. There was an immense task ahead, and a multitude of questions that needed answers. Before advancing further, Guilliman sought to learn everything that had transpired during his millennia-long absence. Over the following 7 solar months, Calgar and his ultramarines fought fiercely for their restored Primarch. During the decisive battle to reclaim Macragge, Calgar led precise strikes to recapture the main orbital batteries of Macragge, Ultramar's capital. Soon, scarlet beams surged into the skies, forcing Chaos warships out of their synchronous orbit above the Ultramarines' fortress monastery. But even before Ultramar was fully secured, Guilliman declared it was time for him to depart for Terra, where he intended to seek counsel with the Emperor and find the best course for protecting the Imperium in its hour of crisis. With the conflict across Ultramar still raging, Guilliman's departure demanded skilled warriors to continue pushing back the forces of Chaos. He therefore assembled a select force of battle brothers from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd companies of the Ultramarines, appointing Captain Cato Sicarius to lead this contingent as part of the Terran Crusade. Guilliman also requested the assistance of Grandmaster Aldrich Voldus and the Grey Knights of the Third Brotherhood. Many others offered their strength, including the Ultramarines' primogenitor chapters, Emperor's champion Marius Amalric and his Black Templars, as well as the Living Saint Inquisitor Greyfax and Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Call. Guilliman graciously accepted all pledges of support, prepared to face the dangers that lay ahead with this formidable assembly. Before leaving, Guilliman assigned Marneus Calgar, Chief Librarian Tigurius, and Captain Guilliman to complete the reconquest of Ultramar, confident that his domain was in the safest of hands. While Calgar continued as the chapter master of the Ultramarines during the Indomitus Crusade, his title shifted from Master of Ultramar to Lord Defender of Greater Ultramar. Only Guilliman himself was acknowledged as the ruler of Ultramar, though Calgar loyally maintained the stability of the 500 worlds. During the Plague Wars, Calgar quelled numerous anti-imperial revolts and mutinies led by the Ultramar Auxilia in Macragge's Illyrian region. He also strategically slowed an orc assault on the Forge world of Metallica through swift surgical strikes. It was during this period that Marneus Calgar took an extraordinary step, becoming the first traditional space marine to undergo the transformation into a Primaris marine. Despite the personal involvement of Archmagos Call, Calgar was cautioned of the risk. There was a 61.6% chance the procedure would end in failure or death, as Call's process was still far from perfected. Yet Calgar, resolute and fearless, accepted the challenge. Calgar underwent a grueling transformation, sliced open from head to heel as 3 additional Primaris organs, the Magnificat, Belisarian Furnace and Sinew Coils, were integrated into his body. This process required a complete metabolic shutdown, leaving him clinically dead for over 20 minutes until the Belisarian Furnace activated and revived him. Through this extreme procedure, Calgar demonstrated to other space marines that the evolution to Primaris was attainable for the Adeptus Astartes. Post-transformation, Calgar donned the armor of Heracles, a specially designed Mark X Gravis power armor suit tailored to his new Primaris stature. In the War of Beasts, Calgar commanded the Imperial defense of Vigilus, a pivotal sentinel world in the Dark Imperium where threats came from every angle. The Imperium faced orcs, Djinn-stealer cults, Craftworld Eldari and Drukhari raiders, though the greatest menace was the Black Legion, led by Chaos Lord Harkon Worldclaimer. Harkon Worldclaimer is a Chaos Lord of the Black Legion and a raptor among the heretic Astartes. Known to the servants of Chaos as the Herald of the Apocalypse and the Proclamator of Abaddon the Despoiler's imminent dominion, he heralds the end of the False Emperor's reign. During the War of Beasts, Abaddon dispatched Harkon to the embattled Imperial Sentinel world of Vigilus. Upon his arrival, Harkon announced to its defenders that Vigilus would succumb to chaos within 80 solar days. Before every ruinous event, there is a warning, a sinister harbinger, and Harkon embodies that dark sign. The apocalyptic destruction he forebodes signifies the coming of the War Master of Chaos himself, Abaddon the Despoiler, Master of the Black Legion. Relishing his role as Abaddon's mouthpiece, Harkon Worldclaimer delights in spreading dread as he announces the doom of worlds, not through hollow threats, but by instilling terror deep within the minds of civilians and warriors alike. He prepares for the arrival of the Black Legion, leading his raptor forces in fiery descents that sow despair with each ruthless assault. The traitor legions learned long ago to wield fear as a weapon. A world gripped by dread or paralyzed by it is a world already weakened. Harkon is not only a leader but a scholar of darkness, skilled in the power of words and psychological warfare. His studies are macabre, extending to the grimoire Nostramo, penned in blood by Conrad Kurzer, the twisted primarch of the Night Lords. He has unearthed the clotted scrolls, learning of the monstrous threats once growled by Angron before he succumbed to the berserk fury that transformed his legion into the infamous Eaters of Worlds. Harkon even dared to delve into the horrific pages of the Book of Marneus, though the price was a portion of his sanity. In his grim studies, Harkon has gained vast knowledge. When he delivers his malevolent proclamation, it's not only his own Lord Haler array that echoes his words, but also the vox grills and corrupted throats of a legion of acolytes. Every word, dripping with raw, mocking hatred, destabilizes morale, incites mass surrenders, and drives some to the brink of despair, even to self-destruction. Most heralds would consider their work done upon their master's arrival, but not Harkon World Claimer. He delights in bringing ruin first-hand as much as from a distance. He targets the very centers of resistance, where defenders organize their strategies, where vital supply lines meet, secret war rooms and hidden command posts, and strikes with ferocity. Descending from the heavens with hordes of raptors, Harkon heads straight for the heart of his enemy's command structures. His thunderous shouts of doom rain down upon his foes, proclaiming that their end has come, and that the slaughter will cease only when every last drop of blood has been spilled. This is no empty bluster. While the defenders scramble to respond, drawing forces away from their lines to fend off his attacks, the Chaos Legions on the ground take advantage, tearing through disoriented ranks and crumbling once disciplined formations. Upon landing, Harkon is quick to unleash havoc. His violent promises grow louder as he carves through enemy soldiers, sending shockwaves of terror through their fractured lines. The assault on morale reaches a climax as he zeroes in on defiant generals and champions, striking them down with chilling precision. These ruthless displays showcase Abaddon's unstoppable will, and the slaughter of the world's mightiest defenders extinguishes whatever fragile hope remains on the stricken planet. Harkon's demon-infused relic, the Hellspear, has ended the lives of kings, alien tyrants, and even fellow Chaos Lords during his long service as Herald of the Despoiler. Each high-profile kill fuels his bloodlust, spurring him toward more carnage. And it's not only the flesh of mortals and Xenos that feels the sting of his spear. It has become his twisted ritual upon landing to thrust the Hellspear deep into the planet's surface, and bellow that, within 80 solar days, it will fall. To date, none of his proclamations have gone unfulfilled. Since his elevation to Primaris status, Calgar favours the armour of Heracles, a uniquely adapted Mark X Gravis armour. This masterpiece combines extraordinary protection with unrestricted movement, providing Calgar with unparalleled battlefield versatility. Artificer armour, while resembling standard power armour, offers far superior defence, crafted with advanced materials and intricate damage control mechanisms. This armour can rival even Terminator armour, though it cannot accommodate the heavier weapons that Terminators wield. At times, Calgar leads his honour guard in the masterfully crafted armour of Antilochus, an ornate indomitus pattern Terminator armour with an integrated teleport Homer. Designed by tech priests of Adamax Primus, it is as functional as it is splendidly adorned. The gauntlets of Ultramar are an ancient, master-crafted pair of power fists with storm bolter strength weaponry and decorative shoulder plates, adaptable to both Artificer and Terminator armour. Reclaimed from a Chaos champion by Guilliman after the Gamaliel Reclusium massacre, these relics have never yielded their secrets to even the most skilled chapter artificers. When not in use, they rest within a crystal case at the Fortress of Hera's Temple of Correction. The iron halo mounted above the wearer's head serves as both a symbol of exceptional valor and an advanced protective shield. Using conversion field technology, now scarcely understood, the Iron Halo is an honor only granted to the most distinguished Astartes within a chapter. In close combat, Calgar wields a powerful relic sword, selected from the most storied relics in the chapter's armory. The Maximus, Calgar's personal land raider, is adorned with passages from the Codex Astartes, battle scenes depicting Ultramarines' legendary victories, and inscriptions of golden filigree. Banners and purity seals flutter atop its frame. Believed to have served the Ultramarines since the Great Crusade, Maximus stands as a symbol of the chapter's enduring might. And so, brothers and sisters of the Imperium, we conclude today's tale of Marneus Calgar, a true symbol of strength, honor, and unwavering loyalty. His life serves as a shining example of what an ideal warrior of the Emperor should be. From his earliest steps as an Ultramarine to his rise as the Lord of Ultramar, he has remained steadfastly devoted not only to his chapter, but to all of humanity. Marneus Calgar is not merely the chapter master of the Ultramarines, he embodies the order and discipline that hold the Imperium together in an age of endless war. Whether it was the bloody battles against the Tyranids during the First Tyrannic War, or his clashes with the demonic legions of chaos, Calgar has always risked everything for the survival of humanity. His decisions on the battlefield have often determined the fate of not just his battle brothers, but entire worlds. And yet, his journey could have ended before it began, during the grueling Black Carapace trials. Even then, he proved that his will was stronger than any trial set before him. His gauntlets of Ultramar are not just powerful weapons, but a symbol of his authority, while his tactical brilliance has cemented him as one of the greatest strategists in history. Remember his confrontation with Abaddon the Despoiler during the 13th Black Crusade, or his unyielding defense of Macragge. Every act of Marneus Calgar is a lesson to us all, to never surrender even when hope seems lost. But his achievements extend beyond the battlefield. Marneus Calgar is not only a master of war, but also a wise ruler. Under his guidance, Ultramar has become a beacon of hope and order. While much of the Imperium crumbles into chaos, Ultramar remains a bastion of stability, thanks to his leadership. Friends, heroes like Marneus Calgar inspire us not only to serve the Emperor, but to strive to become the best versions of ourselves. His deeds remind us that even in the darkest of times, there is always room for courage, honor, and the strength of the human spirit. If you enjoyed this story, support the channel. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions help spread the glory of the Imperium. Share your thoughts about Marneus Calgar and his role in the Imperium's history. Are there other heroes whose tales you'd like to hear in the future?